The Dow down about 393 points. Want to get the read of things from New York Democrat Joe Crowley. He's the House Democratic Caucus chairman. Sir, very good to have you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Neil. Always good to be with you. Thanks.
Nancy Pelosi apparently wants Democrats to behave tonight. What did she mean?
Well, I think what she's saying is that there's a decorum of the House that we, as all members, Democrats and Republicans, should abide by, that there is a responsibility we have to bear witness to what this president says today. It's not necessarily a cheering section, but one that should be respectful to the office of the presidency.
Still, she did add, allow President Trump to be his slobbering self. Was that nice?
Well, listen, I think the reality is what she's doing is communicating to our members that regardless as to what you may feel about the president himself, and we all have deep feelings about this president, that we should not let them overcome us, and that we should act appropriately on the floor of the House of Representatives. It doesn't mean we have to clap for everything he says. It doesn't mean we have to stand for everything he says, but it does mean that we ought to, at least for that moment, show that decorum.
You know, a dozen of your colleagues, sir, are not attending tonight, citing a variety of reasons, from his famous S-hole comments and everything else.
Right.
So they opted not to be there. Others have criticized them for denying those constituents they represent an opportunity to have some influence in the debate and in the night. What do you say?
Well, I respect each and every member's right to not attend if they so choose to do that. I think they're making a statement in that, in of itself, that they have lost all confidence in this president and his ability to lead the American people. I understand that. But I also think that I, as an elected member, from my perspective, and as a member of the House Democratic leadership, need to bear witness to what the president says today, whether I agree or disagree with him, and to be there and to vociferously disagree with him post-speech and to relay those thoughts as well.
You know, apparently Chuck Schumer has given the president some advice for his speech tonight to thank President Obama, presumably for the economy that he inherited. What do you say?
Well, I think, look, you know, there's no question that we've had tremendous growth, not just this past year, but it's been growing steadily ever since. The economy has been heating up, and we know that it's heating up even more now. So I think it would actually give the president some credibility if he actually acknowledged that the economy was improving all along. We had 80+ months of job growth in this country prior to him taking office. I think it would actually inure to his benefit if he actually acknowledged that.
Do you think Nancy Pelosi and some other Democrats, I don't believe you were in this group, sir, but maybe you can remind me, who have been critical of the president's tax cuts for whatever reason, but their key pitch is that the $1,000 that companies are handing out in bonuses is chump change or a waste of time, or it really doesn't add up to much. A lot of people have been saying that sounds very elitist. What do you think?
I don't think $1,000 is necessarily chump change to someone who's making $40,000. Where I do question this is whether or not those bonuses were planned regardless of the passage of the tax bill, and the fact that for the average
you don't think they would have handed them out without it, do you?
It's hard to say. We won't know. But what I will say
half of them have indicated that the tax cuts were the reason.
Well, we'll take them at their word. But what I do know is that the tax benefits for individuals end in about 5 years, whereas for the corporations themselves, they're permanent. So it's nice that they're doing this year. What will they do next year, the year after that, or 6, 7, or 8 years from now? I think those are the questions we would looking to see as Democrats.
Now, sir, you come from a high-tax state, New York. I know that's a big concern for states like New York and New Jersey, Connecticut, whose 3 governors pitched together to sue the government over this, and that is illegal, what they did. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere, but there's a move afoot now to question whether that was a deliberate move on the part of the president. Do you think that was a deliberate move to go after big blue states?
I don't think there's any question about that. Ever since the beginning of the debate on this issue and the exclusion of Democrats from the process entirely, certainly in the House of Representatives, the one thing, Neil, that remained true no matter what was being paid for or not, even when the president announced his initial bill of a $4 trillion package, nothing was paid for except for the state and local taxes. The SALT provisions were part of even that proposal. It's always been a part of the Republican proposal. So you can see by the map, it does pit blue state versus versus red state. And I think in this case, upstate middle class voters and downstate middle class voters in New York City, for instance, it does pit them against each other.
But it is odd. Now, I know you've been worried about the debt. I know you stand out from many of your colleagues there, but it does seem a little rich when I hear a lot of Democrats talking about paying for things. I mean, the $1.5 trillion in tax cuts is one thing. You're quite right. But there's $10 trillion in added debt that through traditional spending, and not many of your colleagues are complaining about that.
Well, I think both Democrats and Republicans have seen a rise in the debt, certainly during the Bush administration, and this administration just did it with a $1.5 trillion investment in tax cuts. And we can argue about this, but 83% of it does go to the wealthiest 1% in this nation and to the wealthiest companies in the history of the world, quite frankly.
But if they're sharing the loot and $1,000, some $2,500, $5,500, Chrysler Fiat,
Neil,
it's better than nothing, right?
If that continues year after year, you may have an argument, but I don't hear that necessarily in the 5-10 year plan of these companies. That remains to be seen. But what we do know is that we've gone into debt. The nation has gone further under this president into further debt, and now there's no money to spend on infrastructure. There's nothing left.
Yeah, we were $10 trillion further into debt the last go around, right?
Well, you know what? We also went into a deep recession after President Bush left office, and it was in 08 with the crash. There was a lot of things that were going on. We needed to stimulate this economy, and I think a great deal was done to create 80 straight months of job growth in this country, and I think that we've seen the benefits of that now.